Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. What follows is the courtroom testimony from the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by various news outlets. All events and statements are for entertainment and educational purposes only. The trial of Sean Combs was already spiraling. Celebrity accusations, government murmurs, headlines dripping with scandal. But on that morning, as the air thinned and the lights flickered overhead, the back doors to the courtroom swung open, and in walked a man in a navy blue suit. Beneath his lapel, glinting in a sliver of sunlight, was a federal badge. He didn't look like the others. No PR entourage, no trembling lawyer, no trace of panic. He carried a simple black briefcase, his steps measured, his face unreadable. The courtroom hushed. The judge gave a nod. No name was spoken aloud. That nod was enough. This witness didn't need an introduction. He needed clearance. He was simply listed as Special Agent Redacted, but insiders whispered he was a high-ranking intelligence operative with decades inside the FBI's organized crime and political corruption divisions. Now, for the first time, he was testifying, under oath, about one man, Sean Diddy Combs. He sat, clicked open the briefcase, placed a thick, worn folder on the stand. His voice, when it came, was steady and stripped of emotion. "I've been tracking Mr. Combs and his enterprise for over 20 years. This is not new. What's new is that I'm finally allowed to talk about it." The jury leaned forward as if caught in a spell. He began. He spoke of the late 1990s when the Bureau first noticed irregularities. Red flags, he called them. Strange financial transfers. Offshore accounts linked to shell corporations. Lavish parties, allegedly mere industry events, overlapping with known trafficking networks. But every time his team pushed forward, the doors slammed shut, he said. He paused to let the silence speak. Then came the 2001 sting. An international operation targeting money laundering through a European branch tied to Bad Boy Entertainment. Evidence had surfaced. Fake invoices, Belizean bank ties, Luxembourg holding companies. The feds prepared to move. But just before action, the warrant request was denied. That, the agent said, was the moment I realized we weren't just dealing with celebrity protection. We were dealing with federal interference. Gasps whispered through the courtroom. The agent didn't flinch. He detailed the signs. Files gone missing. Key witnesses mysteriously relocated. Investigators reassigned mid-case. At first, the team chalked it up to bureaucratic chaos. But it wasn't chaos. It was command, from the top. The prosecution projected a timeline on the courtroom screen. 1999, 2013. Every time Diddy's name surfaced in connection with wire fraud, trafficking, assault, the pattern repeated. A crucial lead vanished. A case was stalled. A federal decision froze the clock. By now, the jury was visibly rattled. A woman in the gallery covered her mouth. A young man on the jury stared unblinking. Then the agent spoke again, this time slower. In 2003, we found reason to believe Mr. Combs was operating under unofficial informant protection. The kind that isn't registered. The kind that only 3 people in the federal government could have authorized at that time. The room froze. Combs didn't move, but his jaw tensed. The agent leaned forward and cleared his throat. The energy shifted. You could feel the weight of what was coming next. This isn't just about the crimes committed, it's about who allowed them to continue. And then, he named a name. That brings us, he said, eyes steady, to Barack Obama. The gallery erupted into stunned silence. Even the judge leaned back, lips pressed into a line. The agent opened the black folder again, carefully lifting out a series of photographs. The first, grainy and distant, showed a younger Barack Obama, then just a senator, standing beside Sean Combs at a Chicago fundraiser in 2005. The next image, a 2007 gathering in Washington, D.C. Off the books, no press, no record, hosted by a high-level lobbying group tied to the Democratic National Committee. Diddy's name wasn't on the guest list, but there he was. These weren't photo ops, the agent said. These were closed-door meetings, and Mr. Combs wasn't just a guest. He was a player. The prosecutor asked the inevitable. What kind of player? The agent didn't blink. We believe Mr. Combs was involved in back-channel intelligence sharing, trading favors, leaking information, offering access in exchange for protection. The defense stood and shouted, "Objection!" But the prosecution remained calm, producing email metadata, travel logs, a redacted internal memo referencing a cultural liaison meeting involving B.O. and high-value entertainment assets. Then the agent delivered the next blow. In 2009, shortly after President Obama took office, our bureau filed a wiretap request. We intended to intercept communications between Mr. Combs and several known narcotics traffickers. It was denied. The prosecutor stepped forward. Denied by whom? The agent turned to the final page of the folder, a call log from a White House-affiliated legal office, the name redacted, the timestamp, an exact match with the moment the wiretap request was pulled. The judge quickly instructed the jury to disregard speculation, but it was too late. The implication was clear. We're not saying President Obama personally protected Mr. Combs, the agent clarified, but we are saying his administration created a pipeline, and that pipeline gave Mr. Combs immunity for years. Every reporter's pen was now flying. The stenographer paused. And Diddy? Diddy sat stone-faced, fists clenched beneath the table. This wasn't luck, the agent said. This was calculated, engineered, enabled by power most people never even see. The agent closed the folder, but not the moment, not the feeling that something just shifted, because the next file would change everything. It wasn't grainy, it wasn't blurred, it wasn't taken in secret. It was crisp, high resolution, and damning. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the image appeared on the screen. You could hear the collective breath of the jury catch in their throats. There they were. 3 men, side by side at a dimly lit gathering on a private estate in Martha's Vineyard. No press, no podium, no public presence. Sean Diddy Combs, former President Barack Obama, Reverend Al Sharpton. This wasn't a public fundraiser. This wasn't a gala. This was what the agent described simply as a gathering behind the curtain. The estate belonged to a tech billionaire, the agent said, his voice like gravel over thunder, with deep ties to both the entertainment industry and classified defense contracts. The guest list? Sourced through subpoena and court approval. It wasn't just artists and activists. It included names from sealed federal investigations, individuals flagged by intelligence services, arms dealers under active sanction, and executives from a familiar name, TriStar Entertainment. Murmurs surged through the crowd. A reporter dropped their pen. The judge pounded the gavel. Order! But there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. Mr. Combs wasn't there as a performer. He was there as a conduit. A silence fell over the room like a bomb blast. The agent continued. He brought information from the streets, from the industry, from the people he manipulated. And in exchange, he was protected. His sins wiped clean. One juror dropped their pen. Another sat stone still, knuckles white. Then the next story landed, and even the judge's eyes narrowed. The year was 2012. The Miami field office had just executed a trafficking sting. Girls, drugs, offshore wire transfers. The suspect? A known associate of Diddy. It was the kind of case that would lead the morning news cycle. But 48 hours later, the case was gone. The file was sealed, the agents reassigned, the suspect released. The prosecutor leaned forward. What happened? The agent didn't miss a beat. A single phone call from a Capitol Hill extension. No name, no voicemail, no transcript. But after that call, the entire investigation disappeared, as if it never existed. He passed a stack of internal memos to the judge. One line, bolded by a shaken field agent, read, "Don't ask why this got buried. Just be glad you're not in the room." The courtroom was still, save for a soft sob from the gallery. And then came the darkest turn yet. In 2015, the agent said slowly, "We monitored Mr. Combs' movements closely. Haiti, Colombia, the Caribbean. At first, we thought it was vacation, but foreign intelligence told us otherwise. The trips weren't random, they were business. Meetings with cartel-linked financiers, yacht parties attended by underage girls, some flown in from Brazil, others from Eastern Europe. One juror looked physically ill. One source claimed the girls believed they were auditioning for American Idol. Someone in the back of the courtroom whispered, "My God." The agent closed the black folder with a soft thud. This man, this so-called mogul, wore the mask of a philanthropist, a revolutionary. But behind it, he was running an empire built not on records or royalties, but on fear, blackmail, and immunity bought with favors. At the defense table, Diddy no longer looked calm. His jaw was clenched. His eyes scanned the floor. The judge called a recess. But nobody moved. When they finally filed out, reporters, jurors, spectators, even the prosecution, it was in total, stunned silence. For the first time since the trial began, Diddy looked less like a titan, and more like a man who finally realized the walls were closing in. When court reconvened, the atmosphere had shifted. The room was no longer just curious, it was haunted. Even the sunlight spilling through the courthouse windows felt dimmer. The crowd was quieter, the jurors stiffer. What had begun as a celebrity scandal was now something far more insidious. It wasn't about Sean Combs anymore. It was about the system that protected him. Special Agent Redacted took the stand once again, this time with a coldness in his tone that made even the judge visibly brace himself. "We have reason to believe," he said carefully, "that a cache of surveillance tapes from Mr. Combs's private properties existed. We don't believe it. We know it." The courtroom fell still. He clicked a remote. A projector came to life. There it was, a single frame, a wall of monitors, dozens of camera feeds, bedrooms, hallways, pools, recording studios, all of it monitored from a single room, Combs' surveillance hub in his Los Angeles home. These images were leaked by a whistleblower from a private security firm. Many of the cameras were hidden, and the people being filmed did not know. A slow horror crept across the jury's faces. This wasn't for security. This was for leverage. He recounted the events of 2016. Federal agents had secured a warrant. They moved to seize the hard drives, but when they arrived, the server room was in flames. "Arson," he said, "and the timing? Less than 20 minutes after we received the green light. Someone warned them." One drive survived, recovered later in Puerto Rico from a locked safe deposit box. And what was on that drive? Footage of celebrities, politicians, and corporate executives in states of vulnerability, some intoxicated, others visibly coerced. The prosecutor didn't blink. Was Barack Obama in those videos? The agent was clear. No, but people close to him were. Donors, strategists, allies, and Mr. Combs referred to them by first name because he knew their secrets. He kept those tapes not as memories, but as insurance. The courtroom was stunned. One juror wiped her eyes. He didn't film people for pleasure. He filmed them to make sure no one ever turned on him. That night, the world changed. Major networks lit up with the story, breaking headlines across every news channel. But in Washington, LA, and Manhattan, it was chaos. Phone calls, closed-door meetings, publicists running interference, crisis teams asking the same question: how much did he know? By morning, the court was under heightened security. Federal marshals lined the walls, not for Diddy, not for the crowd, but for the truth. Agent Redacted returned with a sealed envelope. Inside it, a memo stamped with an insignia most in the room had never seen before: the CIA. This memo was written in 2012, he explained. It was declassified specifically for this trial. The subject line: entertainment assets, high-risk targets. The courtroom barely breathed. The CIA flagged Mr. Combs as a high-value influencer. Not someone to recruit, but someone to observe. Because he provided something rare. Access, he clarified. They didn't officially sanction his crimes, but they looked the other way. Because his parties, his guests, his lifestyle, it gave them data. Behavioral patterns, movement intel, psychological profiles. And that wasn't the end of it. He raised a document, a notarized financial ledger. Wire transfers from Diddy-affiliated shell companies, routed through TriStar Entertainment, and through structures tied to Britney Spears' conservatorship. The recipients? High-level political consultants, lobbyists, and one individual linked to a Caribbean trafficking case that mysteriously disappeared from the DOJ docket in 2015. By now, even Diddy's lawyers looked shaken, but the final blow of the day landed like a thunderclap. We believe one of Mr. Combs's offshore accounts was used to purchase classified intel from a former NSA contractor. That contractor is now dead. The courtroom exploded. The judge slammed the gavel, demanding order, but there was no containing the storm. One phrase echoed in every corner of the courthouse: Mr. Combs had the president's number. And no one, not even Diddy, dared to deny it. The moment hung in the air, weighty, paralyzing. Special Agent Redacted let the words settle before continuing, slowly unfurling a Department of Homeland Security document. It confirmed what few dared believe. In 2014, following a music industry scandal involving underage girls and foreign nationals, we attempted to detain Mr. Combs as his private jet landed in Miami. A customs alert was issued. It was live for 37 minutes, then, suddenly, rescinded. The prosecutor asked the only question that mattered: why? The agent didn't look at the defendant. He didn't need to. Because someone from the Obama administration made a call. 41 seconds. The number was later traced back to a secure White House counsel line. The courtroom didn't gasp this time. They sat in stunned, weighted silence. Mr. Combs walked off that plane untouched. Hours later, he donated $500,000 to a political action committee tied to the re-election campaign. The message was clear. This wasn't coincidence. This was currency. And Combs knew exactly how to spend it. He wasn't just buying silence, the agent said. He was buying relevance. The prosecutor raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting? I'm suggesting, the agent said flatly, that your vote might have been traded for protection. That celebrity influence was weaponized, and Combs was the middleman. Then came the final day. The courtroom was packed wall to wall. Reporters called it the blacklist trial, but no one knew just how literal that name would become. Agent Redacted entered with a fireproof briefcase. Inside it, Project Ghost Room. A 94-page dossier recovered in 2022 from a hidden vault in a Newark storage facility, he explained, labeled Priority Protected Archive. It contained dozens of hard drives, hundreds of Polaroids, handwritten notes, flight manifests, surveillance stills from hidden cameras, transcribed conversations from microphones allegedly planted in clubs and hotels. Among the names, executives from Interscope, Live Nation, Rock Nation, and 2 former White House aides. This was not memorabilia. This was blackmail. He showed the court a chilling example. 2017. A rising pop star refused to perform at one of Combs's events. Within days, tabloids ran with mental breakdown rumors. Weeks later, she signed with a label tied to Combs's distribution network. The courtroom was stunned, but the most devastating entry was still to come. A single handwritten line from the archive, BO+RS. Call handled. Payoff confirmed. Donation received. There were no full names, but the initials, widely believed to refer to Barack Obama and a known recording executive, needed no explanation. The room broke into chaos. One juror whispered, "Jesus Christ." A reporter gasped audibly. The judge's gavel couldn't stop the energy pulsing through the room. The agent spoke above it all. "These aren't just accusations. These are patterns. This wasn't about music. This was about building a shadow empire. One night, one tape, one favor at a time." Then, as the court prepared to adjourn, he returned with one final folder. Marked, "Confidential. Witness files declined." 26 individuals, all refused to testify publicly due to NDAs, threats, or fear of retaliation. He read excerpts. A choreographer from 2005-2012, drugged and bruised, dropped by her agency the next week. A 19-year-old male model, lured to a party under the guise of a fashion shoot. No phones allowed. Security instructed him not to speak unless spoken to. And then, CWBYU 11. 17 years old, thought Diddy was a mentor. He told me if I left or said anything, my family would regret it. A heavy silence fell again. The agent held up another sheet. These are confirmed victims. Their stories matched time-stamped locations, party rosters, and video metadata. The judge looked away. The jurors looked sick. There were no more questions, but the prosecution had one final card to play. "Mr. Agent, do you have anything else for the record?" He reached into his case and pulled out a transcript. A phone call intercepted in 2015. Sean Combs speaking with a senior figure at a lobbying firm. The room waited. The agent read it aloud. "You said keep it off the radar. But I did my part. I brought in the dollars. I brought in the artists. We flipped 5 precincts blue last cycle. If I go down, some of y'all are coming with me." That voice, he confirmed, belonged to Sean Combs. The courtroom was paralyzed. This wasn't about parties. This was about elections. The trial had begun as a scandal. It ended as an exposé of rot at the highest levels of celebrity, politics, and government. Sean Combs sat motionless at the defense table, as if finally seeing the shadow empire collapsing on top of him. And everyone in the room had the same question. How many more names are in that blacklist file?